We're going to be recording today's webinar. That is just the screen share portion. It's not going to be anybody's webcam if your webcam is brought up during one of the breakout sessions. It's also not the chat or anything like that. If you do take the opportunity to share your screen during the breakout sessions and show us some tools that you use in your classroom, that will be recorded, just so keep that in mind. And if you have any questions about that, you can ask Brian or shoot us an email at our email address. So today's objectives are just to share the best practices for presenting at the conference in New Orleans or any national conference. We also really want to crowdsource the hunt for tech tools. We know that a lot of conversations that happen at the conferences sort of move in that direction, and people just want to know what's useful and what's actually changing the way that people instruct kids. So not just the flashiest new tool, but what are people actually implementing that's changing the way they operate in the classroom. And the third thing is then to think about also what are the tools that you use primarily at conferences if they're different than what we use in the classroom. So ideally through the breakout sessions today, people will hear about one or more of those things. And if you have any of those things, we certainly would love to hear about them. So right now we're going to have this introduction is going to be pretty short. We're going to give some best practices overall of the conference, and then we're going to have a 5-minute transition to the breakout sessions, and we will instruct you on how to get to those. So that should be pretty straightforward. And at the end, there's a survey. It will actually only take 2 or 3 minutes tops to fill out, and we'd love to hear from you just after the breakout sessions to know how we can improve this webinar and the work we do moving forward. So a lot of us on the tech community have presented a number of times at NCSS and other conferences. Many of you I know have done that as well, and you have a lot of expertise in presenting. So we wanted to just start with a few big ideas that a lot of us already know, but sometimes don't think about as we're approaching the conference. We know that if you're on this webinar today, you've probably hit a certain threshold in terms of the ability to use technology, but we thought that these would be helpful just to give a rundown of. So the first is downloading all materials to a hard drive. The reason that we think that is a good idea is because unless you pay for the dedicated line at the conference, it's hard to absolutely rely on internet at most conference centers just because it gets spotty sometimes. So if you're doing something that requires a lot of bandwidth or whatnot, downloading as many materials as possible to a hard drive is a good idea. An example would be Prezi. It takes a lot of bandwidth sometimes to show a Prezi, and I've always had a lot more luck downloading it, even though it's a very large file, to my hard drive. Bringing paper copies is about getting to everyone's entry point, and a lot of people just are more comfortable with paper copies. So while a lot of people are not interested in killing lots of trees, I know that in my own classroom I try to reduce paper usage, but when it comes down to it, I want the kids to be able to feel comfortable with material and not have any barriers to entry. We recommend double checking the room and equipment prior to the presentation time, just to know where it is, to make sure if you order any equipment that it's set up. This could be going just right before you present to make sure that everything's there, and checking out who's presenting before and after you can also be helpful. It's not that you will necessarily talk to them before your presentation, but knowing who they are could be helpful in terms of congeniality and etiquette and that sort of thing. Bringing someone along with you, even if it's your presentation, just having someone in the room that you know can help you troubleshoot things, whether like there's a big problem and someone needs to run out and grab something, that can be really helpful. Or designating someone, if you have multiple presenters, to go out and take care of issues like that, whether it's a tech issue or whatnot. With multiple presenters, we recommended having a tech navigator, basically getting all the files for a presentation onto one single machine so that there's not a lot of switching beforehand and during the presentation, so that it can run pretty smoothly. Also having a timekeeper. A lot of people have talked about how sessions run over sometimes, and that can be an issue. So having a timekeeper with multiple presenters can be really helpful, so it moves along. Another piece with hardware is bringing your own speakers if your presentation really relies on sound a lot. There have definitely been issues with speakers in the past. I know it could be a pain to travel with them, but it's kind of, it goes to the next point of being prepared. You probably have all seen people not have the right cord, dongle, etc. So bringing every kind is helpful, not only to you, but to other people you will be presenting with, other presenters. It's been my experience, and I think all the other presenters today, their experience, that most people at the conference are pretty helpful. They are willing to lend you hardware, leave their projector if necessary, and that sort of thing. But of course, being prepared is super helpful. The last one is timeliness. I mean, it kind of goes to etiquette. We wouldn't ever assume that people would run over, but making sure you're done a couple minutes early especially helps with the transition. Something that can be very helpful when you give a presentation is to make sure that you have your contact information readily available so that you can give it out at the end of your presentation while you're breaking down. This could be putting it up on a poster, something as simple as that, so that people can get it on the way out. It could be handing out cards, but trying to get out, a couple minutes of flex time can help basically everyone's presentation. So if you have anything to add to that in the chat, if there are some things that you, if we didn't cover it, if you think that there's something super important to include in presentations, that's been your experience, we totally invite you to put those in the chat window. And there will also be opportunity to talk a bit more about that in the breakout sessions. So for those breakout sessions, we have a link to the document that I shared with most of you already. So this tiny URL will get you there. It's a public document, tinyurl.com/techwebinaragenda. And that agenda has all the access information you need to get to these breakout sessions. So they're not locked by what you RSVP'd with, but we would like it if you went to the one you RSVP'd for. If you wanted to change your mind, that's totally, it's fine. But we're sort of anticipating a certain number for each session. At this time, we're going to go ahead. If there are no questions, if you have a question, you can type it in the chat or into the tech webinar today's meet. If there aren't any big questions about this information, then we're going to transition. We're going to take about 5 minutes, which means that 3:20, all the presenters who are here will be in their breakout rooms ready to go. So I'm going to stay on for a couple minutes here, so if people have questions about that, I can help answer them in the chat function. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.